I'm going to show your poster for a little bit, and then I'm going to open up the story map to show. Is that okay?
Yep, that's good.
Okay. Why don't you take it away?
Okay, so just to introduce myself, I guess. My name is Keney. I'm a high school senior at Xavier High School. Vicky, do you want to introduce yourself?
And I'm Vicki Reske, and I'm with Ironwood Community Partners. This project was something that a board member brought to me, and I became very interested in it. I did not know Han until we met at the workshop, and so we discussed the things that he was interested in. And Han, why don't you say what interested you about the project?
Yeah, so for me, since it was my first time doing something like this, it was fortunate for me that Vicky was already involved in a project that I could like take part in, and also luckily it was something that I was interested in. So one thing that appealed to me about this project was that it gave me a new perspective on conservation. Um, like the mindset of like conservation that I had earlier was more of an environmental conservation, but this focused on more of like a historical conservation, and also I also enjoy hiking, so and mapping trails is something that interested me as well.
So the project was Keney Park, Sherwood in Sherwood Forest, and it was a zoo that operated in the 1960s. It was run by the city of Hartford, and the zoo was abandoned in the late 60s, and there were still remnants of the zoo in the park. So when we met at the workshop, we set some goals for the project. And one of the goals was to finish the project by the start of school. Mm-hmm. We had expected to meet 2 times with Han, and
Yeah.
but the first, go ahead.
Oh yeah, okay. So like one thing about like this was Vicky and I actually lived quite far away from each other. So I wasn't able to meet her as many times as I wanted to. And so that was part of the reason that why we wanted to get this done before school started. Since then, I'd be too busy to go on like a 45-minute drive up to West Hartford. But we made it work.
Yeah.
Okay, Vicky, you can continue.
I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing what you're saying, Han, so I might not react right away to your cues. The first thing we needed to do is to locate the site within Keney Park. Keney Park is a huge park, over 600 acres, and the zoo was, what do you think, Han, not more than 12 acres?
It was 12 acres initially, and then at its peak it was like 18 acres, I believe.
So we were able to use 2 organizations to help us find the trails. It was Ron Pitts from Knox joined us on the first Trails Day hike, and also Herb Virgo from Keney Park Sustainability. Both of them knew the trails fairly well. They hadn't walked the exact route of that we had. We had a existing map of the zoo, and it took us a while to actually locate that existing walk, that trail in the woods.
Mhm.
But I think we were most successful on the second time we met in the field, which I think was in July. I think we did 2 walks in July, one at the very beginning of July and one at the end. And every time we walked it, we got a little bit better idea on what was left along the trails that have been planned. And from the existing map, there had been an additional exhibit added, and that was the aquatic center.
Mhm.
So just loading. Is this better? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I switched computers with my mom. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
might be what-
That's much better, huh?
Okay. I think it was the computer that was the problem. Okay, so thank you for Vicky for filling up that space where I was going. Okay, so did we just kind of skip the history, I guess, a bit?
Yeah, we went over the history, and then the old map that you were able to use to find
Yeah.
the trails.
Okay, so for this, so this was done in like Vicky was saying, in 2 trips. So the first trip was just to get like an initial sense of where everything was, and then the second trip was made to kind of fill in any missing gaps and make sure all of the waypoints were in their correct locations. So we used the TrackKit app to map our chairs, and then that was exported into Google Maps. And at first we tried using the ArcGIS software to make a map and putting that into the story map, but instead we ended up just embedding the Google map into the story map. It's easier. So yeah, so I tried to make the map pretty accessible. Like so you can see like the icons that kind of show, like indicate which animals that it would, like those would be the scene lines,
Mhm.
and like those you can kind of see like the deer or like the moose and stuff that used to be there. So on the side you can see I talk about the aquatic theater.
Mhm.
And that's interesting because like one of the things that interested me about this project was how you could see the ruins like correlated with um their like structures, and that's how you could identify which like what area of the zoo that you were originally in.
It's pretty crazy just looking at the photos of how
Yeah,
nature is just taking it back, right?
yeah, and this is pretty like recent too. This
Yeah.
was in the 60s, so
Right,
it's
right.
amazing how much, and it's like quite dense over there as well. So
We were lucky to have some of the board members of Ironwood become active in the project. One of our board members is a graphic artist, and she was very interested in learning the 3D camera. So we spent some time learning that in between our 2 major hikes. And we brought the 3D camera on the second hike.
The
yeah,
images from that are really pretty impressive, right?
yeah, 3D images turned out well.
Yeah.
Those are really nice.
And who was that helped?
It was the graphic artist from our board.
Okay.
You can see him in the background. They're wearing the CT.
Oh, you're hiding there?
Yeah, her name is Robin Sherwood, and
Yeah.
and you can see her in the foreground.
Is she related? I mean, it's named Sherwood Forest.
No, it was
No, yeah.
just
That's a
it was-
coincidence.
Okay. I wasn't sure. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
And this is the bear enclosure.
Yep. You got a question from Tyler. What are some fun facts that you learned about the park or the zoo?
Okay, so let's see. Oh, one thing that I found interesting was in the moose enclosure, there are these trees with wire fencing around them.
Mhm.
And I learned that that was to protect the tree bark from like the moose rubbing their antlers on it, which apparently is harmful to the trees and like destroys their vascular systems.
And the trees still had the fence around it?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and some of the trees as they grew, actually, the fence it got incorporated into the tree.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. This
I
one's
think one of the things that I found really interesting about this project was the zoo was using a landscape habitat within each enclosure, and it was a major step forward in zoo design. But one of the reasons why the zoo did not thrive was because during the planning of the zoo, not enough attention was made to the security of the animals, and there wasn't proper administration on the part of the keepers, and it left the animals very vulnerable.
Oh.
Yeah, there was one instance where like a deer's legs were broken.
Oh.
Yes. So like, and there are I guess a lot of concerns about like welfare and stuff.
Right. The animal's well-being. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was surprised by the different types of animals that they had.
Yeah,
Sorry.
at its peak, they um they had like more than 250 birds and animals on display
Wow.
in like 46 major exhibits, covering 18 acres of forest land. So it got quite big at one point, which might have like contributed to like sort of its demise because of the rising costs that took to maintain
Mm-hmm.
like such a zoo.
And until your project, I had no idea that it had even existed. And I wonder how many other people also, I'm from Connecticut, and
Yeah.
it's like this hidden thing in time. And maybe people that know Hartford really well, remember it or that sort of thing. But I really like that you sort of resurrected this and now more people kind of know that it
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And
And
that's part of like the conservation aspect of this that I also enjoy, just to like bring knowledge to the public about something that they might not know existed and something that has historical significance.
right.
we had hoped that we would do a public event where we would walk the trail, and that was to happen in the fall. And we realized that as we were documenting it, it was a little bit too dangerous to bring the general public in there.
Okay.
We believed that there was a person living in the aquatic center.
Wow.
A homeless person.
Yeah.
And there were a number of things that needed to be really cleaned up. I mean, before we could have, brought the public in. I think Han got stung by a hornet, didn't you?
Oh yeah, during one of my
Yeah. So go ahead.
yeah on my forehead, I believe.
Oh.
It's okay.
So there were some unexpected things that happened as we were documenting.
This one.
Go ahead.
Oh no, you can go ahead.
I was just going to say, yes, I could see, if you got all these just remains of things, fence wire and broken, crumbling concrete, that it probably could be pretty dangerous for people to be poking around.
Yeah, if we were to do something like that, I mean, I'd love to like volunteer for like a cleanup or something,
Oh,
and, like maybe try to research the chairs a bit, but that would I think require a lot of manpower.
right.
Yeah, and we had hoped that Keney Sustainability Project would be interested in pursuing this a little bit further in the near future.
Mhm.
But they, after talking to them, they have too much on their plate as it is. So we didn't want to burden them with another project.
Right.
They have to be ready for it.
Do you think that they'll host a link to your story map on their website?
I think, one of the partners that we didn't really mention was Connecticut Historical Society.
Oh.
And basically, we found most of the documented information in their library. And I think they would be a good place to have our storyboard and location of the story map for any people who do research on it.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah. Okay. If anyone has, Carl asked, did you find any small objects left, on the ground of interest?
Smart objects.
Wait, there were. I think the picture that is up right now is of a jail cage.
Yeah,
Which
that's a smart object, but yeah, that works. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
everything is pretty big. The site's been abandoned for a very long time and has a pretty thick cover of leaf
Oh, okay.
on it. So we'd have to dig to get small objects. We were encountering much larger objects.
Okay.
Yeah. What was the jail cage used for then, Vicky?
When the city of Hartford was looking for inexpensive solutions in the zoo, they got the idea to bring in old jail cages.
Oh, I see.
And that's one of them they brought in. We're not really sure if they ever used it, but it was brought in as an idea.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, I really appreciate getting to learn about your project and you sharing it here today with everybody else. So thank you again for making time to participate with this. Yeah, and I hope that we can get your story map shared out on a few other websites so that more people know about the history of the forest.
That'd be great.
Forest. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.